Setting up the show parameters. Are our guests ready? I've heard one person say yes. Okay, excellent.
And Ted, I'm doing the timers tonight, so I'll apologize in advance.
I give Ted all the time.
Oh, I could forget on anybody. Who knows who I'm going to forget to change it on just because y'all said something brilliant.
Okay.
Cue the Daisy commercial.
Okay, audio timers on. Video timers on. Set. Ready? This is Joe Boy with WJHM102jams.com, recording Third Side Convo with your host, Bob Phipps. Starting in 5, 4, 3. Welcome to Third Side Convo with your host, Bob Phipps. Your panelists today are Ted Johnson, Donald Thomas, Michelle Walters, and Joe Boy. Oh my goodness, me again. And now, your host, Bob Phipps. Hey, what's going on? Hey, Bob?
There it is.
4, 5, 7, 6, 6, 8, 9,
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Zero.
These are the stakes to make a world in which all of God's children can live, or to go into the dark. We must either love each other or we must die.
Vote for President Johnson on November 3rd. The stakes are too high for you to stay home.
Unreal, everyone. Welcome to the Third Side Convo with a very serious commercial, considered pretty much the first negative political commercial ever. It actually only aired one time, and it's looked out today as pretty about the nastiest thing that's ever been shown out there. Back in the old days, let's face it, they had to write stuff down. Back in the old days, mudslinging was done by like political pamphlets, written stuff. And what they do is it'd be anonymous because, of course, they had libel laws back then and stuff like that. And now all you have to do, somebody could even consider this show. Who knows? But what we're going to talk about, we're going to suspend the rules as long as you do not mention the name of any current or likely politician. Okay, we are going to open the Third Side Convo up today to you're allowed to bring up names. Any politicians, dead, retired, but they cannot be somebody who's going to run again, and they cannot be somebody who's a current politician, because we want to talk about mudslinging, and the reason we want to talk about it is simple. It has always been bad. Don't think it's that much different today. Yes, we have social media. We'll talk about that a little bit. Joe Boy, what is your favorite one? You've done a little study on this now. What is your favorite political mudslinging?
Your mother is a whore, and your wife is an adulteress. And the response was, you're hermaphrodite. Can you believe that was considered normal mudslinging?
Yeah, Ted, do you know who that was?
I have no idea. What year was that?
Well, it was Andrew Jackson.
Yeah,
yeah. Who knows about that one? Who can talk about that? Anybody? Yeah. So Andrew Jackson, what happened was Andrew Jackson, his mother was accused of being a prostitute. His wife was accused of being an adulteress. But what actually happened was she thought she'd gotten a divorce. She married Andrew Jackson. So technically the divorce never went through. It absolutely ran her down. She was very religious, and she ended up dying like 3 weeks after the election. And Jackson held it against his opponents forever. Can you imagine that type of stuff? His wife died because of that. Ted, what's your favorite?
Favorite? Oh, I don't know. I mean, the one that comes to mind most obviously was the George H.W. Bush racist thing. His name escapes me. I just wrote about it. Where they darkened the face of the convict who came out, the Willie Horton ads, and they were criticizing Dukakis on his early release program. He's the governor of Massachusetts, running against George W. Bush in '88, and I thought that was pretty egregious because, and Lee Otwater, who was his campaign manager, who came up with that, a Southerner, by the way, admitted on his deathbed, he was dying of a brain cancer, that was over the top. That was just a little too extreme because it made everyone afraid that any black person could be Willie Horton walking down the street.
Yeah, that's right. Don, you remember that one too, right?
A little bit. I remember that one a little bit. Yep. But my favorite is pretty much current is the birther one with you know who. That he's not from this country. He's not born here. So that's my favorite. That's my current one that I have.
Oh, you mean the Keenan?
When Obama, who is no longer running, was accused of not having a birth certificate.
Obama, and by the current guy who is running, but that was one of my, I think, the most dividing one that I can remember. You know.
And his answer was the long form.
Long form.
Exactly.
Michelle, what's your favorite out there that you've read about?
My favorites, though, go back before the turn of the century, and I was really, truly shocked at just how deplorable and vicious and vile some of these things were, to where I honestly think that today's mudslinging is almost minimal and compared to what was going on before. But I have a couple of favorites, though. One of them was Alexander Hamilton, when he was calling out Jefferson that he had a love child with a slave. That was a good one. But my big favorite is John Quincy, which he was accused, the handbills were handed out, and he was accused of being a cannibal. And that these handbills exactly were stating that they were massacring over 500 Indians. And so the bloodthirsty Jackson began again to show these cannibals' propensity by ordering them to dress a dozen of these Indian bodies for breakfast. I was like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Absolutely. That is insane.
And that was acceptable.
Cannibal. Or not only that, though, but even with regards to, what was it, Lincoln, they said that a lot of the, because back then it was tickets, that some of the tickets weren't necessarily even being printed, that they just completely refused to have them printed. And I was like, and how was that even legal back then, to where you sit there and state, okay, well, this select number of people, you guys just don't get to vote. Forget it. You get no tickets. Sorry, bye. It's insane. It just, some of the issues that took place so long ago, it baffles my mind.
It's incredible. All right, Joe Boy, what's next for you? Which one's next for you?
Oh, I don't know. There's so many good ones out there. And when you look in the old times, from what I can see, that's always been there. And I think that's the part that matters. This is something that has always been, and it's not going away. In fact, it's getting more, faster, better, and it's going to keep happening. And it's all another form of misinformation.
Well, hey, Ted, I want to ask you, how does a thing like the Willie Horton thing happen? Kind of talk about the background, because it really did happen, correct?
Easy. It goes into they bring in people, talk to them about their biggest things, what the thing you fear the most, this, that.
Right.
They come out and they can realize that, okay, racial integrity or racial inequality or fear of crime, usually it's fear of crime,
right,
or something like that, or comes up, and then they manufacture an ad that plays on the fears of people, generally speaking.
Right.
And I think one thing about the
I forgot that
this campaign particularly, but I think past campaigns, look at the message people are giving out and who they want to hear. Who wants to hear this stuff? Everybody knows what's his name wasn't a cannibal.
Right.
You know, and the Goldwater, Barry Goldwater was running against LBJ in '64, and he said something to the effect of,
"Done the research to check it out yourself."
Extremism in the defense of freedom is no vice. Moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue. And So they turned that around. That's when the Daisy ad came out as him saying he'd do anything to preserve us, including use the atomic bomb. And everybody were just horrified by it. So think of the target audiences these are going for, even back with the pamphlets. Now, the pamphlets
and Goldwater was so old school that his reply to that was, in your heart, you know he's right.
Right. Yes.
So, of course, then LBJ and his minions came out and said, in your guts, you know he's nuts.
That's right.
And that did hold.
I forgot about that.
And you got to realize there were a lot of Goldwater ads. One of the other ones is similar, also used with Kerry. John Kerry, the same one. He called him a flip-flopper. Which Goldwater are you voting for, Republicans? Are you voting for the one that said this or the one that said this about the same subject? Or the Goldwater that said this? So I don't know how you're going to vote for Goldwater since there's not two ways to tell which one you're voting for. And that was there were 1-minute ads, and they were very damning.
Right. Well, that's what I wanted to talk about with you, Ted, and Don also being on the left. You know, when the Willie Horton thing came out, it was all about the fact that there was some kind of a leniency type program where it was a work release type program, right? Well, if you have a work release and 5,000 people join that thing, what's likelihood that one's going to, end up? Well, that's exactly what happened. And they found the perfect person. Like Ted said, it was a black person. He killed somebody and he was on Dukakis's early work release. But don't we always do that? I mean, that happens today. One person, obviously with all the immigrant stuff going on right now.
Scare them to death.
Yeah. Can we find an immigrant that's doing really well? And can we find an immigrant that is, so it's kind of like they pick and choose, don't they, guys? Don.
So
why are we allowed to pick and choose to tear people down? Why do we do that?
Well, back in his pick and choose, I remember back in when Jesse Jackson was running. The thing was, he was an adulteress. He was all these affairs, which kind of came true, but they were still mudslinging that before they had the evidence. They were still mudslinging back then. I remember because Jesse Jackson actually came to one of our events down in Oakland, and I was a Jesse Jackson fan, and they started saying about the women and everything. So it goes back, even to modern, but go back to the history. It's always been there. Even with Kennedy, back in Kennedy's days, Kennedy was, his father was a crook and his mistress and everything else. And Kennedy ended up winning. It didn't really stop it, but it was already there.
Gotcha.
Don't forget,
it could have made it more popular.
There you go. Well, we got
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to go in and take our first break, and then we'll be right back to talk about it again. And then maybe we can end up figuring out whether or not there's anything we can do about it. Subscribe, please. Go into YouTube and subscribe to Third Side Convo, please. And we will see you after our break from our sponsor. Be right back.
Yeah, I remember.
Aw, Dad, my computer's slow again and I can't play my Genie.
Are you paying for this ad, Joe Boy?
Today, the website again is bcairboats.com.
So in Third Side Convo, our goal really is to get everybody to recognize, I'd like to think, that we're closer together than we would like to believe. And let's face it, this is a fairly divisive election. The fact that we still got Ted and Joe can become friends is just proof positive. Okay, proof's positive. And Don is the same way. He's got to recognize that, we may, those conservatives on the other side may be a little bit out of their minds, but they actually mean well. So I guess what I want to do is, as we talk about these things, see how they do relate to current times and what is going on right now. Is, without mentioning specifics, what are some of those things that you've seen that people did that are happening today? And yet we're so upset about them. Does anybody have one of those? Joe Boy, you got one that you can think of that happened?
Phone calls coming from candidates that's not the candidate, but saying they are, and mounting up all these crazy stuff. and then people actually being dumb enough to believe it. And no, it's not AI. It's just somebody who's just saying they're the candidate, and they're getting away with it. And they're saying stupid stuff, making people feel bad.
Well, you're getting, bombarded with text messages as well. I mean, it's everywhere. It's wherever you go. It surrounds you. It completely engulfs. It's in your social media. It's on your phone. It's on your, the ads coming through. Yeah, via email, phone calls. It's nonstop. I mean, you are surrounded.
I'm praying for November the 5th, quickly.
But are people believing it any less just because of the fact that they may have only heard it once? In other words, they may have read it in a pamphlet. They may have seen it in a newspaper. Whatever the case may be, wasn't it just as bad in the past? And probably people still believed all that stuff.
Absolutely. I think that it was, my personal opinion is I think that it was worse in the past. I think that people were much more egregious and horrible in the past. And it goes on both sides. It's, you know what I mean? It's equal, from Democrats and Republicans. I mean, it seems that people are just as the only clean election was George Washington, and that was what, like, 17.
That's because it wasn't an election. He was just given the title. I mean, take a look at Clinton. Okay, we did everything but examine the dress when it came to Clinton. He got torched 7 ways from Sunday.
Well, here's the thing. Back in the day, you didn't have the internet. You didn't have all the stuff. Right now, you can fact check a lot of stuff. I ain't saying everybody still does it, but there's still a lot of half the world still doesn't follow anything until the last possible moment. But they didn't have the internet and everything else. Right now, you can check stuff faster than ever now. Back in the day, you had to wait for a letter 3 weeks later to get the information because you didn't have it there. You had to write for it. Hopefully, the government will send it out to you, months later, or you'll find out something that happened. So I thought
but you can also make lies that much faster and spread it so fast on the internet. I can pop out 50 lies a minute way faster than I ever could do when it was getting spread by horseback. And now with AI, I'm going to make you believe it there, Don.
Yeah, AI now is different now because they can force it unless you're savvy enough to go check it.
I still think that overall, if you think back to when Kennedy got elected in '60, he appealed to a large swath of people, young people who are coming into the voting age and the economic power, and convinced them this is a new era. I think Ronald Reagan did the same thing in '80, a Morning in America. I still think the message that appeals to the broadest sense, no matter how much negative information comes out against a candidate, if it appeals to a broad enough swath of the American public, they win. Obama did it in 2008. Of course, it didn't help that the country was crashing into an economic disaster area. And Biden did it again. Biden did it in 2020 because I think enough of the people were just tired of the chaos of the previous presidential candidate.
That's what it is. Yeah, exactly.
So I think.
I just heard him say Biden. That's a current one.
Or is
he's not running.
People?
I thought we were going to stay off politics.
More of the people in power start to care.
He's not running.
Hey, Ted, we can make all sorts of jokes about whether or not he's a current politician or not, but
he's not walking either. But come on, we're trying to talk about
that. Don, we'll have to do that.
But the fact of the matter is, it still comes down to a message that appeals to a broad enough swath, despite the mudslinging.
One of the things that I wanted to bring up, though, was the super PACs and the amount of money that's sitting there and being spent. It's astronomical these days. I mean, we have over, I think it's 4,200 PACs out there, and there's like over $4 billion that's been raised, and I think 2.5 that's been spent. I mean, that far exceeds. Yeah, I mean,
a lot of money.
Last election is astronomical. It's
right. But there's one thing currently that was proven in the current person. I ain't gonna say the names, but the one person has only been campaigning for like 4 months, and I believe 4 months is plenty enough time to campaign. What's been proven, you don't need a whole year to campaign.
2 years.
But you don't need 2 years. It should be like 4 months out. You can do everything in 4 months. And
past elections, not current one. Oh my gosh, you guys are killing me.
Yeah, here we go.
We knew it was going to be tough, but actually, we could do it like they do in Europe, where sometimes they'll call an election, and the election will be in 6 weeks. They just all of a sudden call an election. You got 6 weeks to campaign.
You don't need
that would be.
Or how about people saying they already won?
Michelle, one thing you got to understand, Michelle, that especially in target states, close states where the races are close, This is where TV stations, newspapers, direct mail companies, this is where they make all their money.
Absolutely.
They make those ads you see on your local TV ad that go for $5,000 a minute, a year and a half ago in Orlando, now goes for $15,000 for every 30 seconds. And you can't flip a channel and not see a political ad. Right. This is where they make all their money. It's part of the electoral industrial complex. There you go. I coined it. I'm taking on.
So it's the media's fault?
No, it's not the media's fault. They take advantage of it.
Take advantage of it. Exactly, Ted.
Absolutely, they do take advantage of it. Now, what about some of the proposals that want changing some of the
culture in the media?
My understanding that there's three different kinds of packs. You know what I mean? There's a traditional, there's a super, and then there's the hybrid. And with regards to the traditional and the hybrid, though, it's trying to bring in some more public funding to help aid some of these other individuals that don't have these high networks these high networks to be able to stand in the same field as some of these other ones, to where they are extremely funded. I think that it's
some packs.
Oh, it's not about the funding anyway. It's about what people do, and that the media exploits everything. I was just thinking about something about the Newt Gingrich. You guys remember Newt Gingrich? Yes. His thing was to destroy it all, but he had all kind of, they were mudslinging with him, and he's one of the people that actually started mudslinging. That guy that made it actually jump this new version of what's mudslinging. Newt Gingrich stuff has actually started this crap, really, if you go back in a little history, because he was Mr. Mudslinger himself, but he had stuff in his closet.
I don't know.
Demonized.
Well, to me, that takes top honors right there.
Yeah, I mean,
well, I will say one thing y'all need to go watch, and I've showed Bob, is y'all need to go watch, just search on Google and search political combat, Kombat, and you will be laughing hysterically at a video game style of politicians fighting it out. And you got Herman Cain going 999 999 and Obama going, oh, hope and change. And it is hilariously funny. And at least you can make fun of some of the mudslinging going back on and on and on and never ends.
That's be considered satire, not real.
Yeah, but is it different from y'all have actually done a little, one of the things I want to do for people watching this show is for them to go back and see that this has been going on forever. Is it really worse now? We're going to talk about that after we get back from our break. We're going to really try to figure out, is it worse? And we're going to try to do it without doing what Don's doing, mention some current politicians or whatever the case may be. Again, if you're watching after the fact, please go subscribe on our YouTube, thirdsideconvo.com,
it's not worse now than it used
and
to be.
Facebook, and we will be right back after a word from our sponsors.
It's just different with the new technology and everything else.
Hey, Bob, are you there? Bob, are you there? I guess not.
I do think it's worse. I mean, it's not worse in that the mudslinging is worse. It's about the same. Honestly, they can get just as dirty, but the problem is that the people feel more vulnerable, and there's a lot less places to look up credible fact-checking sources.
You don't have a Walter Cronkite with 15 minutes of national news anymore. But I mean, the three that got me was, I worked on the Kennedy campaign in 1960, and everybody said he's a Catholic, so the Pope's going to run the country. And then on the Johnson campaign.
Hi, welcome back. We probably, I guess, have decided that this thing, we're not going to stop this, right? I mean, it's because it's like people. I mean, if anybody has ever been involved in a volunteer organization, is there drama? Of course, because there's people. We can't get out of that. Now, is there do you think that it's pretty much the same or isn't going to change? But what could we do about it? Ted, is there something we could or should do about it?
Well, I think what you're missing the point, Bob, is the sides have become more hardened. It's harder to be flexible and go back and forth across that median line. Now, because of social media and now with especially AI generated ads, you're getting more reinforcement of what people want to believe. And that's what's dangerous. The echo chamber has become louder, deeper, and stronger. And that's what's hard. Makes it hard for anybody, the moderates, and particularly in the middle, to have any conversation with moderates on the other side. That's what hasn't met, because the lines have been drawn very hard and very deep.
But if we can talk
Agreed
about it,
completely.
for example, if Joe or Michelle, who are on the other side now, sat back and looked historically, for example, at the Willie Horton ad, and you said, is it fair to choose one person out of 20,000 people that were part of this program who happened to do this? Is that correct? You could probably find something that they're doing on the right that shouldn't, that isn't logical, or excuse me, isn't fair, whatever you want to say.
There's always exceptions. Yeah, there's always exceptions. If you're going to point to the exception as opposed to the rule, you're always going to find countless examples. But can you talk about the general rule that rules most common sense? Like, for example, kids do not go to school and come home in a different sex, a different gender. That doesn't happen. Though people have been saying that because of what the current laws are, but that's not true.
Don, is it the
Sally
problem we have
Buckenfudge
too many
effect.
what are considered
Basically, a
low
random
info
person that
voters?
they
Is
pull
that
out
the
of
problem?
somewhere to use as an
that way we
example,
couldn't,
because you can always find
we're
one.
doing here, trying to reasonably talk about how each side has a point.
I think it's a big problem, and I don't know what the solution is. If I can come up with something, I think that we should tighten the lies and the record. It's not true that people can actually do something about it as a penalty or some kind of way. I don't know how it would curb it, but I don't know. I'm just thinking of something where you got to curb it some kind of way. There's got to be a penalty if you tell something that harms other people, even with our libel laws or something.
So are you going to be on the committee that helps decide that?
Media.
Yeah, around the election committee. If
just
you get
completely taken away the seriousness
you
of
get
it.
fined so much money, $10,000 a lie, whatever.
Oh my gosh, I need a cricket soundboard now. Oh my gosh, where's the cricket?
We better at least have Michelle on that panel with you, Don, so at least we can have some kind of balance, right?
Exactly.
I'm trying to remember.
Part of the problem is people don't understand the difference between a lie and a spin and an exaggeration.
The various,
like
the package.
So, I agree with you. Some people call a lie is not
the rules and regulations of them.
I agree with you, Todd. A lot of it's just exaggeration.
I know. I have it, didn't you?
I know. We need our fact checkers here.
Well, we do need our fact checkers.
Well, there's the Federal Election Commission, the FEC.
Right.
Yeah,
that's what I meant.
But I think that's going to be the only way that we're going to be able to sit there and try to create some type of common ground or some type of rules of engagement. I think that's the only way, because it's not, you can't sit there and put it to people on their own fruition that they are going to play by the rules. The only way the rules are going to be played is if they have restrictions placed on them.
Well, there's not going to be an easy way to solve this. It's going to get more and more happening. You're going to have AI-driven stuff where you'll be able to record someone live and they'll look like Elon Musk, even though they're talking live. So you're not going to be able to believe anything for real unless you're looking directly in their face. It's going to be that way. It's going to happen. So maybe we just might as well inform the people, hey, this is what's going on. This is the way people are. And by the way, use your brain to figure out what's real and what's not. And we have half a brain. We even have a full brain. We can figure out what's a lie and what's true.
I don't know.
Okay. One thing that has to be said, though,
it should be disclosed.
I think they should have the debate, like the debates. They should have a money pot up on the screen, and you start off with $300 million, and every lie you tell just starts taking the money away from your pot.
Hey, Michelle, one thing that's happened since a certain guy came into office in 2016 was that actually the industry has been set up checking facts. PolitiFact, AFP Fact Check. The Associated Press does a lot more actual just fact checking. Those have become an industry now because of somebody used to be in office.
Fact checking is garbage because, again, my last comment,
it's actually a business,
facts always depending
there's
on
enough
your
business.
Yeah, there are
view,
great fact checkers that are really good at going one side or the other.
An opinion.
And it depends on where they're getting paid from.
I can agree with
side
that
they're going to
in
be
the
on, and
sense
that's the
that
sad part.
an objective truth can be spun very
business.
subjectively, and
These are
speaking about this earlier today with my husband, it's the use of emotional language rather than just telling people what is happening.
If you don't believe that, there's no hope for the country.
And just adding
you
things
think
like
everybody's
tragedy,
got one
sad,
side or another?
horrible.
There's nobody who's really truly objective.
Just tell me what happened.
Seeing that more and more in what these companies and who they're hiring.
People who can discern what's real and not real. who can look up facts and say, no, there wasn't so many people let into the country last year.
How about the facts of whether or not a paper mask works just as good as a cloth mask versus a K90 mask? The fact is we were lied to, and guess what? The K90 mask was the only one that worked, and we didn't find out till years later. But at that point, we were going to say one way or the other because there was more money in it.
I got
Even
a Fauci
large
video
companies
sent
were
to
told we're
Dr.
going to block
Eisenberg.
anything that has it.
It'll
Just 'cause
tell you how
disagree
bad
doesn't
he
mean it's right.
lied.
And it happens on
Well,
both sides, not just left or right.
I understand completely. I didn't say the business interests wouldn't stick into it. So that's a lobbying campaign. That's called PR, Joe Boy.
Exactly.
Like I said,
It's PR.
You think that doesn't happen in Washington every day? What you think happens in Washington every day? Oh, use this cement for your freeways. Yeah, but they cracked 10 years earlier. So what? We gave you $10 million for a presidential campaign.
You know, I always love talking to you, Bob, or Ted. I always love
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, believe it or not, we've come to the end of the show, and I like to think we get somewhere every time we do this. If nothing else, we attempt, we try it again, we go back and forth, and then what's interesting, what y'all don't know about, is then we have many emails afterwards, some of which you even read and answer. But you know, it's establishing friendships amongst people from the other side. It's having familiarity with them, and at least the ability to listen a little bit, because that's what we've got to do in this world. The political mudslinging is going to continue. We have two choices. You know, we could just decide that it's all going to be cut off, and then we got First Amendment issues. So let's just recognize it's out there, and let's recognize that, you know, it's much bigger that we just stay together so we can talk in the future. And we will look forward, and we're going to have an upcoming election. The country will be alive after that. Let's move forward to Third Side Convo, and we will see you again. Thank you so much for being here tonight.